Alright, so this is just a little demo to show the scripts that I did for Project 3. First thing we're going to do is create a NURB sphere, just so that we have something to mess around with. Now the first script that I made was for a move GUI, and what this allows you to do is set the coordinates for how you want your object to move, or your selection. This would work for vertices, edges, faces, objects, anything. And hit move selection, and as you'll see, it moves it into where we want to go. Just to show that that's actually doing what we want to, I'll do a small increment here along one axis, and you'll see it moves how we want it to. The second one I did was a rotate GUI, which, similar to the first, allows you to specify the rotation around each axis, and then it rotates it how you want it to. And finally, or not finally, but now a scale GUI as well, which allows you to scale it along each axis to whatever, well, up to 10, to whatever size you want. And there you go. Now the next part of this was kind of the main body of this project, even though I wasn't able to implement it in quite the way that I wanted to because of Mel's and Maya's limitations in scripting. So I'll just get into it. What I did was I created a bunch of scripts that would allow you to work with the move, rotate, and scale tools, and bind them along one axis, and use this all through hotkeys. So I'll show you the hotkey setup real quick. If you go to the hotkey editor, scroll down to the user menu, and you'll see here these are all the commands that I've put in. Each one has a unique hotkey, and it calls a unique procedure. So for Xmove here, it has the Control-Alt-W hotkey, and it calls the Move X procedure, global procedure I should say, and that is defined in the script that I made for it. And so each one has a unique hotkey and a unique procedure that it calls. Before we can use any of those, though, I was running into this issue where the scripts would not load when Maya was restarted, and so just to force it to do that, I created another script called set customs that, when run, allows all of the scripts for those commands to be loaded, and that way when you use the hotkeys, they'll actually work rather than giving you an error. So just clicking that allows those to be set. So if I go into the move tool here and press Control-Alt-W, you'll see that this X-axis manipulator is selected. Then if I press and hold the middle mouse button and drag, you'll see that the movement is restricted to the X-axis. Now if I hit Control-Alt-S, movement is restricted to the Y-axis, and Control-Alt-X, movement is restricted to the Z-axis. Now if I go to the rotate tool, and I hit Control-Alt-D, rotation is bound around the Y-axis. Do Control-Alt-E, rotation is bound around the X-axis, and Control-Alt-T, rotation is bound around the Z-axis. One thing to note is that the rotation axes for this are the object coordinates, not the global. So you'll see as I rotate the Z-axis here, the X and Y are moving as well. And so then if I go back to rotating around the Y, it rotates on an angle there, and that's because it's the object coordinates, not the global. Just undo those. And then if I go to the scale tool and hit Control-Alt-R, scaling is bound to the X-axis, Control-Alt-F, scaling is bound to the Y, and Control-Alt-B, scaling is bound to the Z-axis. So these scripts may lack a little bit of pizzazz, if you will, but I really wanted to do something like this ever since I started working in Maya, just because I am not a fan of modeling in Maya because of how dependent everything is on using the mouse. I much prefer using keyboard commands to work a little more quickly and effectively, and just having to click on these manually and drag them, even though it's not that much slower, I just found it to be very annoying when working on anything. And so, at least for me, I'm going to be using these scripts whenever I even using Maya from now on, and I feel like that'll definitely make my workload easier and faster. And so that's why I did this project.